you help introduce your family? Just kind of a flyover, first a flyover, and then we'll go back to the miracles so how old are your kids, and how long have you and
Okay.
Allie been married?
Al and I have been married for 16, which is crazy, like 16, 17 years in July.
Mm.
And we have 4 little girls. I'm 38, Allie's 35. We have a 7-year-old, 2 6s, and a 1-year-old.
7, 2 6s, and a 1. And when you first told me the age of your kids, I was like, "Oh, you must have twins." And then, and
That's
then I got
right.
to learn about the miracle and how God brought you your kids. So
Hmm.
let's go into your story first, and then there's so many other things I'm excited to talk to you about from your story. But about 11 and a half years ago, you guys have been married, what, 4 or 5 years, I believe, at that
5
at that
years.
point.
Yep.
5 years. You're young, married, excited to start a
Marital
family.
bliss. It was
Yeah.
perfect. No
Yeah.
fighting, no nothing.
Oh
It
boy.
was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And then what was the news, and how did your lives change?
That summer we were on a beach trip, and I remember Allie and I both looked at each other like, I think we're ready. We want to have kids now. And so we were already doing our part, but we were wanting kids. And so come that October, I didn't know this, but when women they look up every way you could possibly do to find out if you're pregnant. And one of those ways is like soreness in your breast. And so Allie was feeling one day and felt a lump in her breast. And so we went from planning how we were going to tell our parents we were pregnant to calling and telling them that Allie was diagnosed with breast cancer at 24. So needless to say, for our little world, it really stopped in that moment.
So you find out the unimaginable as young,
Mm-hmm.
married, hopeful for kids. Yeah, what was that like, going through this unexpected, like, well, that's not the path we had planned, but we found out she has breast cancer. Tell
Mm-hmm.
what it was like, and then kind of take us into a little bit more of the story of trusting God.
Um, I was 27 at that point, and Allie was 24. We do look back and tell people we were so naive at that point that where there was a piece of guard, we were guarded there some by what we didn't know. We didn't know what all was coming. Um, Today at 38 or 40, when I hear somebody diagnosed with breast cancer or whatever, I know the weight they're about to feel. And so I would tell you, like, it was brutal. It was rough. I mean, as a man, one of the first things, and I was only 27, but it was just the truth. I didn't know. So we found out Allie was diagnosed on October 17th, was a Monday. Like, I mean this. I didn't know if the next day when she woke up, she would look different.
Just, you know,
Uh, and I think what you look back on is like, I think people think you had some trick as to how you lead in that kind of turmoil. And the reality is, like, when I look back, there's no trick. You just walk. Like, I just knew what I knew at 27. And that was, you just don't fight. You don't quit. You just keep fighting. And so I think what I would tell you is, without going into all the nitty gritty, is that's kind of the prevailing story. Is we just had I don't even like to call it blind faith that God was good and is good, but we just believed. Like, even when we had no picture, like, we have no clue what's coming. We have no clue what it's going to look like. Because again, at 27 and 24, you know nothing about medical. I mean, we knew nothing. None of our friends had been diagnosed. And so very quickly we end up at MD Anderson. Allie had a very aggressive form of breast cancer that had spread to her lymph nodes. So the quick version is, I was an entrepreneur. I was in real estate. We build houses and then also build investment properties for ourselves. And so it's not that we ever had a lot of money, but I didn't have any kids and I had no debt other than a house. And so I was able to kind of stop life. And I went with Allie to everything, and she had 16 rounds of chemo. Obviously she lost her hair, and all the other things, your fingernails and some other side effects. And then she had a bilateral radical mastectomy just to make sure nothing else is there. And then she ended up having, let's see, 4 more surgeries after that to kind of fix it all and the things they do to make it all work. That's the best way I can say that without going into the time detail. Not it is what it is, but obviously she is the toughest person. What women can do in those moments is truly incredible. That's all I'll tell you. I think if put to it, Jeff, you and I, if we had no choice, we would fight and claw and we would do the same thing. But women in particular have a way of doing it in a way that is pretty mind-blowing. So that was about it. I'm doing the fast version of, in essence, 2 years is 16 rounds of chemo, double mastectomy. We moved to Houston and did radiation for 2 months. Yeah. So that whole process, in essence, is a 1.5 to 2 years.
And you put on hold for sure. Now you're focused on her and her life, your wife's life, not the hopeful life of a baby. Like,
that's right.
So that's on hold. But then she recovers, or is protected, recovers, and you start to think kids again. Can you take us into that chapter?
So very quickly, we were counting down the days. They give us these days and say, like, hey, from diagnosis and then cancer-free, you can start trying to have kids again. Well, Allie knew that date. We counted down those days.
Yeah.
And so we started trying to have kids. Obviously, with chemo, they warned us that we would not be able to have kids early on in the deal. And I'll skip back to that. Within the first 2 days of being at MD Anderson, they initially wanted to preserve Allie's fertility. Within like an hour of wanting to do that, a test came back that said it was too aggressive. We didn't have time to wait. So I've told this 100 times and still, like, there's just parts where you come back face to face with moments where you did all you could do is just trust God. I remember that as a 27-year-old, we were sitting in the hospital room and the doctor says, Dr. Moreau said, Allie, if you were my daughter, I would start tomorrow. And we asked him to leave and we prayed, and I'm standing in this hospital room at MD Anderson with Allie, and she had no shirt on. So it's certainly very raw. And, I just look at her and say, like, Allie, if you're not here, kids don't matter. So, it sounds brutal in that moment. But in reality, what Allie's saying is, well, should we preserve my fertility? And that was one of those moments. God and the Holy Spirit is very kind to a 27-year-old man who's trying to lead way beyond what I have the capacity at 27 to lead, and speak life to our wives and give them hope. And when our insides are like, a blender. And, so that I did. That's what I said to Allie. I said, Allie, baby, if you're not here, this is irrelevant. And so then fast forward, we tried to have kids. We did everything you can do to attempt to have kids, and nothing happened. So we ended up applying for an adoption out of 22 people. The birth mother picked us, and so we moved states, and we got to be in the room with our first daughter, first breath. Where that's the incredible part. We're able to tell her, your mom was the first to hold you, first to feed you. We have literally known you since your first breath. And 7
years ago, right?
Yes.
She's 7 now.
Yep. And so, and we do look back, Jeff, like we were babies. We were, I'm 38, I was 31, Allie's 28, 29. And I still wonder, I'm like, man, they trust these people with kids. Like, what are y'all doing? And so and I still think that at 38 at times, I'm like, man, I don't know if I don't know if this is a good setup.
So you get to take your daughter home, and even the learning about adoption. My 4 girls, none of them are adopted. They're all biologically born, but the beauty of adoption. What did you not know that you know today about adoption?
Yeah. I think because we were asked a fair amount, and how it usually comes to us is a woman messages the Facebook page or Instagram, and it's usually a woman attached to a woman. So it's either a mom, an aunt, a friend, and she says, "Hey, there's our friends can't have babies, and the husband's worried about adoption." And so if I had one sentence, if I had a 10-second elevator ride with a guy, what I would say is, most likely your fear or what you're wondering is, can I love that baby like a biological child? And I can point blank 100% tell you, most likely more than a biological child. Not literally more, but it's different. I don't know what to explain of like, our human ideas of love are so low until they get put to the test in that moment. And I can tell you as a man that I picture, like, I mean, what I say is, like, when I see my daughters, I picture them as us. Like, I don't, with Genevieve, Genevieve will most likely be taller than me by the time she's like 10. And I picture her when she's playing basketball. I was a point guard. Well, I picture her, and I picture myself as her, as like, yeah, she'll be dribbling. I'll be able to teach her how to, guard the ball going left-handed, even though you're a right-hander and whatever. And in that, I'll get 5 minutes into that thought, and at some point it does register, and I'm like, God, you are so good that you're the love you've planted in me for that child far surpasses anything I understood.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I love the way, many of our guys are going to be listening, not watching the YouTube video, but your eyes, the way you just light up talking about adoption and the gift. Now, God wasn't done with your story. When your first daughter, then the journey continues, and talk about your family growing from there.
So a year and a half later, Genevieve is 16, 18 months, and Allie comes up pregnant, which we did not think obviously was an option. And we weren't on any kind of help. We were just doing our part and thinking it had no chance, but doing our part. And Allie comes up pregnant in December. And then a month later, we get a call from Genevieve's birth mother, birth mother, saying that she was pregnant again and would we adopt? And we said yes, obviously. And so that was January. And then by February or April, found out we would be moving states to make that happen. And just in a sidebar, I don't actually know if this is, I think it's in the book. I don't know if it was on TLC, is that March or April. So Allie's we have a 1-year-old, Allie's pregnant, and we're moving states to also have Lydia, and I lose my job.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had real estate, but I was working somewhere and found out I would be losing a job. And so, obviously as a man, that is not an awesome moment.
As you add 2 more babies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Take us into like what were you experiencing? What was your heart like in that moment?
Heavy. I think it was a new version of heavy. Obviously, with Allie's health, it was heavier than I had ever felt in my life. And then this, somewhere in that little gap was the first time I really felt the pressure of provider, is what I would say. Up to that point, I'm not sure it had really hit me, the fears of not being able to provide. And I think that's the best way I would say it. Probably took me a week to wrestle what I was going to do and how we were going to do it. And that was interesting.
At this point, you are, if my math is right, you're maybe 3-4 years out of the medical journey, or at least the all clear. you're adding daughter, your second and third daughter born within how far apart were they born?
They were going to end up being, they were born within 11 days of each other.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-huh.
So you got two newborns and was Genevieve your oldest three?
Yep. Yep. Three at that point.
Okay. 003. Right.
Yes.
And you're jobless.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's you always look back and 10 years removed from anything, it looks way more planned out than when you're in the middle of it. And the truth is, whether or not I liked what happened to me forced me to be a man, to be more of a man, to do what God had me doing, that then sets me up for 10 years down the road that I don't know about. And so, and the truth is I don't like it, but it probably forced me to embrace real estate and construction like at a place I needed to do it.
Wow, that's an interesting observation of like there's moments, and those moments are preparing you for sometimes a decade out. And how do we embrace the moment in the current, because we don't see what it's attached to, right?
Yeah, well, I think at that point, I know for me, sometime around 3 or 4 years ago, like just the picture of God is that big. He does know his plan is that wild.
Yeah. Was it before your fourth was born that you got into radical mentoring? When was that chapter?
I read about radical mentoring. I think I actually read about radical mentoring before Genevieve. So, I mean, 5 to 7 years ago, somewhere I read about it and I did a group.
Yeah.
And then the next year did another group. And I tell you, Jeff, I would go to these, and Kevin Harris and Radical Mentoring, they may laugh at this part of it. But when I would show up at these, the Mentor Summit, which I would tell any man to go to, I would show up at these Mentor Summits and they're all like 60 plus. They're all older.
Yeah.
And I show up as a 30-year-old or 32, whenever I was going, and they'd look at me like, hey, are you here with, like, where's your dad?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here with my dad. I'm here to do this. And so it is, I mean, when I read about radical mentoring, it is the number one way. I've never read of any other way to decide for a system to allow a normal man to disciple if he cares about discipling. And so when I read about it, I was like, I needed it. I knew I needed it going through Allie's treatment. And then what we were going through, I had men do that to me in a less formal way, but they saved me. Mentoring and discipleship at its root, at least for me, it's me saying, you're about to go through what I've already been through, and I am unwilling. It's not an option for you to get hurt worse than me. It's not. If I have something that can stop you, I can't stop you from feeling the weight, the pressure, the heat. I can't do all that. I can tell you it's coming. And when you're in the middle of it, I can let you know that part's normal. You didn't fail. And that's why you feel the pressure of being a dad or a provider. And that's what real discipleship and mentoring is it's somebody out ahead of you saying, I'm not willing for you to fail. And I happen to be blessed enough to have some guys around me. Like when Allie got diagnosed, they had a huge prayer meeting the day we left before we went to Houston. It's one of the main places I look and I can see that we were 27 and 24. None of our friends understood what we were about to go through. So they wouldn't have even known to have a prayer meeting for us. They know cancer's bad. They know it's not good, but in that moment, what I now can see was all those 45, 50, 55, 60-year-olds, and in particular, one couple that had just been through it twice, leukemia twice. They knew crystal clear what we were about to embark on, and they were not willing to let us be on our own. So when I read about radical mentoring, it lit a fuse. There's nothing else like it.
Well, your passion for that work and how it's affected your life and how you want
Mhm.
to see other men experience mentoring through radical mentoring. It's contagious. I spent time 4 years ago with Reggie Campbell, the
Wow.
founder, who's now in heaven, and got to share that conversation and then share it again to kind of honor his life when he passed away. So we've shared that twice, and I'll link to it in the show notes so guys
Mhm.
can go hear him explain the context and how God kind of led him to get this going. But I mean, it's all around the world now. There's groups all over the place. So we're recommending, both of us, Josh, you and I are saying,
Uh-huh.
learn more about radical mentoring, press in. Could you give us your kind of elevator pitch on like, this is what it is? I feel like you already answered the why it's important,
Uh-huh.
but what is it?
Growing up a pastor's kid, and in the middle of the Bible Belt, good guys, good Christian guys, um, there's a difference between being around church and discipling. They're not the same. That's not close. What Jesus did was he let people close, he called them, he got them close to him, and then he poured life into them at enormous rates. And then he set them out. Well, radical mentoring provides it's not even like just an outline. It's a system that a normal guy that works a 40-50 hour a week job goes in, he gets 4 to 6 guys, he logs onto the computer. Radical mentoring has it set up where you pick topics. If you want it on leading your family, character, spiritual gifts, theology, you click, okay, let's say I'm going to lead this group and I want those 7 topics. When I put that into there, that then spits out a book. And radical mentoring is built on reading. And so you meet once a month, an older man, any older man, and this is where they all thought I was crazy. And I think at this point maybe they think I'm less crazy, but I'm still very willing. What I heard in that was it didn't matter how old the mentor was, as long as the mentor was ahead of the mentees. So you can be a 30-year-old. Obviously, it's really aimed at 35 to 50-year-old guys that honestly are at the middle of their life where they could implode their life if they're not careful. That's
Sure.
really the truth. And so you pair them with a 60, 70-year-old guy. They meet once a month. You read a book. You do a net out, which is different than a book report. That's reading a book and saying, when I read this about the book, it shows me this spot in my life where I'm doing blank with Allie, and I've got to get better at it.
Mm.
So it's not just highlighting where you get in a group and you say, hey man, we all struggle with lust. Yeah, no kidding, bud. But spiritual growth being, I want God to point out the dark spots in my heart, bring them to light, and then they have no chance to survive there. And so
It's
radical
actionable.
mentoring is you share your faith story one time, and then from then on, it's not an accountability group. It is about a group of 4 to 6 guys, probably reading more than they've ever read, memorizing more scripture than they've ever memorized, which obviously, God's word's very serious. Hide my word in your heart. Like that's a serious deal.
Yes.
And so that's what radical mentoring is. If I was stuck in an elevator with somebody, what I would describe to them is
Yes.
it gives a guy that cares about helping other men not fail as hard as he did. It gives him a way to pour into them over a 8 to 12 month period, unlike anything I've ever seen. Because discipling fails because it just feels so long. And how do I do it? What topic do I, if I'm going to disciple you, I love you, I care about you, how do I disciple you past, Josh, I need help, I'm about to implode my marriage? Well, that's easy in month 1. What do I do in month 2?
Takes you through. I thank you. for your passion, and just it'll be all linked in the show notes for the guys to get in and get after learning more. I do want to move us back into, so this is happening. You're a part of wisdoms being passed into your life, and you're also helping other people in this chapter of trusting God for this miracle story of him adding daughters to
That's
your
right.
life. Take us into the next chapter then of adding another little girl.
So when Genevieve was 5.5, Vera and Lydia were 4. We were about to build. We had just sold our house. We were about to build another one, and we're looking at these plans. And I build houses for a living, and we're looking at these plans. And we had just met with the architect. I mean, 10 minutes ago. And my wife, this video is up on social media, so you can go laugh at this later. My wife keeps wanting me to look at the plans on the counter. Like, we just met with the guy for an hour, and she said, Josh, would you come look? And I'm like, baby, Gary's going to have the new ones to us in 10 hours. Let's just wait. So she keeps going and finally, you see me, like, I get up off the couch, I walk over, and I'm trying not to, like, terrible face to look at her, but I mean, it was not a pretty face. And finally, so she's showing me all the rooms, and she's like, here's Genevieve's, here's the office, here's this. And there was this one room that she wasn't saying the name of it, and I wasn't thinking. And all of a sudden, she just keeps putting her finger down, and I see it, and she puts her finger down on this room, and it says baby's room. And I was like, babe. And I mean, you see my face, it registers, and I just thought, I said, no. And she was pregnant again. And so 1.5 years ago, we have a little girl, Estelle. Mom's perfectly healthy. We're, Estelle's doing great. And so life just went on.
So to the medical system, the doctor said you chose a path that put Allie's life first and did
That's
not
right.
preserve like her body to be ready to have babies. So these are documented babies that should not have been possible.
That's right.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point that they told us to stop some of the fertility help because she wasn't producing eggs. I mean, so it wasn't just us thinking we can't. It was medically like Miss Taylor, you need to stop. So
yeah. So here you are with 4 little girls.
it's
And
incredible.
yeah, I mean, there's not that many of us out there, dads with 4 girls. So
That's what I've come to find out.
yeah, it's I get a lot of public love though. Basically anywhere I go with the 4 girls, people just show such love to me, like I'm a son, a grandson.
Big
There's like,
time.
you're amazing. I'm like, I'll just soak all that in. I'll soak all that in being a girl dad times 4.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
The television series that you guys were a part of because of these miracles, these miracle births, and your journey of overcoming and just being fighters. You've even mentioned that theme of like fight, and it's in, I mean, the book that we're going to make sure is linked out that you guys have written, Allie's Fight. I mean, you're a fighter. Right. But I think the series was called Rattled. Is that right?
That's right. We back to when we had blogged for like 5 years. And I told you this, we blogged because I did not think I could handle coming into town every week and answering how Allie was doing the first time around. So this is 2011. This is before all this social media. We had social media, but not at the levels it is. So we blogged for 5 years, had written 2 books. And so when we got ready to move north to have Vera and go be with Lydia, Allie's aunt actually emailed TLC and told them about us. And so I get a call from New York. I remember where we were standing, and they were already doing the fake calls, and so I didn't want to answer. So I answered it, and the lady introduces herself, and I mean, Allie was sitting there. I said, you're kidding. I said, this is a joke. And she said, no, don't hang up. And I said, and so then she quickly tells me some things about us that she could have only known if she was legit. And so, yeah, they asked us to be on a reality show called Rattled, which was going to be on TLC. And so we did not really, the truth is, Jeff, we did not jump because it's so unreal. Just being honest, when somebody says like you're going to be on TV, we just thought, frankly, we're not that engaged. Like you're not going to like us that much. And but ends up we felt like it was in line with what God was already doing. And so even something that crazy, back to God's plan, if that had come 5 years ago and we had not done the other things, we would have said no to that because it didn't fit. It didn't, like, no, this is crazy. The reality is, as silly as that sounds, for what God had been doing, it fit. And that's even hilarious for me to say today, but it did, and it was cool.
That framework, though, of paying attention to how God speaks to you guys, but also I think that applies to all of us dads. Like is the nudge, is the opportunity fit what God has already been doing? You're taking his faithfulness from the past and your story, and you're saying, it doesn't fit with this. This is who we are. This is what we've lived. This is, so that's helpful. The two themes that I wanted to have you maybe expound upon is the theme of rattled, and how news can rattle, and how, and I don't know if that was the theme, why it was called rattled, but like that theme, and then the theme of fight, being a fighter. You've already mentioned it a few times, but anything else you'd want to share with dads around the theme of rattled or the theme of fight?
Yeah, I think rattled, I think the biggest, and it's what I try and do for us, from myself today and any guys I'm around, leading in immense turmoil is actually, as silly as it sounds, makes everything very clear. You know, like in some of our darkest moments, I've had more clarity on what I was supposed to do because I didn't have a ton of options. So in the worst of moments, I simply had to beg God to help and just say, God, I'm not this big. I'm not smart enough. I'm not big. I need you so bad. That when I felt those moments, it actually gets very simple. And then, like you said, the fight piece, I've never said this in a book or anything because I'm afraid the guy might actually hear it and think it's bad to him, which it kind of is, but it is what it is. When I was in 9th grade, we went to a new school, and I played all the sports. I went through summer activities, summer football, 2-a-days. I went through everything. And the week before the football team was going to lose in the playoffs, which I didn't know they were going to lose, I decided to quit so that I could play baseball. The coach pulls me out of the class, and I'll just say leaves it with this. Said that I was going to be a quitter for the rest of my life. And so so then you fast forward, and nowhere else in my life have I quit, nowhere else. But what you start realizing is, in that moment, like when Allie's diagnosed at first and we named the blog Allie's Fight, that was just very simple. And then, like, I think the tagline of Allie's Fight was, cancer, you messed with the wrong woman. I think that's the other thing I think of, like, in that moment, it was actually very simple. I just named the blog that. What I didn't know, and it's crazy to even think about, what I didn't know was how God would use something that simple, and then what all that would become as a theme of, like, no, we are fighters. We don't stop. And when it's hard, we're better. So even as I say that, I'm not sure I've ever put those together, that God would kind of, by naming a blog that, what all that become. I mean, that's 11 years. That's so crazy. Goodness.
Well, part of my prayer and the reason this ministry, Dad Awesome, exists is to see dads be fighters versus dads who take flight. Fight or flight. What are we going to do? In flight, you can stay on the home front. You can stay married. You can stay present, live in the same house, and be a dad who took flight. Passive, who's numbing, who's caught up in addiction. Like, there's all kinds of ways to stay, but not be a fighter. We just pray for dads who will be fighters in the best kind of way. When we say fighters, of resilience and perseverance, and go after the hearts of our kids and our wife, and go into the valley with them, and I'm saying all that knowing that I'm so imperfect in this ways, but I've chosen to be that dad who's going to just keep going after it, even though I
Mhm.
mess it up all the time.
Oh
and
gosh, yeah. Well,
but
like,
there,
and you'll laugh at this. This morning, Jeff, so I take my 3 girls to school this morning, 3 of the girls to school, and one of the girls, they have hat day at school, and one, Vera, who's actually incredible. She's our performer. She put her hat in her bag and didn't want to wear it. So she goes to get out of the van. And I'll just say I was short with her. It was based in me wanting her to wear the hat and feel cute.
yeah,
But as a 6-year-old, she felt embarrassed walking into school, and I did not handle it good. I said a little something I should not have said. So before I came and did this, I went and checked I went to Vera's school, got her out of class, and said, "Baby, I'm so sorry. Um, Dad said something he shouldn't have said to you. My words were not great." And we hugged and whatever. And I think what you hit on right there is so important. We feel so disqualified from leading because we're not perfect. And I think that's the crazy part is if men, and I'm talking to Josh Taylor and Jeff,
yeah,
if we can keep in front of us that I can lead while being flawed. Me being flawed or you being flawed does not make me fake. I think what's keeping us at times is I equate my flaw this morning to a guy living in open sin. That's not the same.
no, it's
But you know what I'm saying? Like, and if we're not careful, that's what you're talking about is that but we become passive and feel disqualified, and we have to numb based on things that actually are not disqualifiers at all.
that's right. And being a fighter, there are multiple rounds of a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been into boxing. I took my brother on a couple times with boxing gloves,
That's
but
right.
never the idea of like, hey, get back in for the next round, go to your corner, get back in there, get it back in the fight, get back in the fight, get stitched up a little bit, and get back in the fight. You're trusting God in like rounds of like, oh, another round of trusting him, another round, lost my job, another round of this fight. Uh, just in the last few months has been another round of
That's right.
trusting God. And part of this podcast, part of the ministry Dad Awesome is I want to be a recruiter of people to pray and trust for miracles. And you guys have an army behind you in this fight that are already praying, but why not recruit the Dad Awesome army of
Man.
dads praying for the Taylor family? So would you share about the current chapter of the fight and
Mm-hmm.
trusting God so that we can all be praying with you?
Absolutely. October 17th of last year, so 5 months ago, was Allie's 11-year anniversary of initial diagnosis. That was also the day she went in to get a cyst removed that we thought was nothing. And then 2 days later, October 19th, found out Al was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so we kind of, that's another moment I would tell guys is you're not prepared for the whole picture. Let me clear up. You're not prepared for the whole picture. If God dumped it all on you, you would stop.
Yeah.
That day, I had enough. Allie had enough for that day. So how that Allie goes into surgery, doctor who is our friend comes out and she is like, she pulls me in this room. She's crying. And obviously I know something's not right. And so she tells me, and immediately the words out of my mouth is, God, I'm not big enough for this. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. I think that's one fallacy is like, we think we're supposed to be big enough and you're not big enough. Like life can be bad enough that you're not big enough. Now God gives us the strength to take the next step. But so then I know I've got to tell Allie, who's asleep, that what they have found. And so about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I tell her, and I probably can't tell you the level of awful that is. Obviously then telling your kids, which my kids don't grasp it, but they still understand it. They've heard us talk about God healing and miracles and whatever. And so they understand. People have passed away since they've been alive of some version of cancer that we have prayed for. One in particular is like a lady named Miss Vanessa that I've known my whole life. We prayed and prayed and prayed, and she passed away. And so we've had hundreds of conversations with our girls about that. And so they don't get it, but they get it. And so that very quickly started a treatment, and Allie's had 4 chemos. And then as of last 2 Mondays ago, so yeah, 15 days ago, had a hysterectomy, which is actually in her setting is a cancer surgery where they remove all their reproductive organs, all of it. And they obviously go in and look around. There'll probably be quite a few guys on here that have some idea of ovarian cancer. That one is a little different than some other ones. Is they literally, the way they look at it is they physically look, and they felt like they knew what they were looking for, and when they went in, we didn't get any surprises, which is incredible. God, all Allie's markers they've halved every treatment. We've seen God so clearly again. That didn't make it all easy, but so Allie's 2 weeks removed from that. They say it's about a 8 to 12 week recovery. So she can't pick up our little baby, can't pick up the girls. So it's obviously we're still in very interesting times, but God, we believe got Allie's healed, and now we just have to go get it. We have to,
Yes.
I do believe that. I don't have to ask for it a ton.
Mm-hmm.
God I believe I'm going to in faith grab that. And, a lot of times us as men, we don't want that kind of hurt. We don't want to say something's going to happen and then have to bear the weight of whatever. But the truth is that if we don't lead ahead, which is what I just say to myself and other guys, is if I don't set the bar for faith for my little girls in Allie, they can't pass it. They can't. And so you just have to be willing to speak it and say it and fight and just believe it. And yeah, that's I can go on there, but
we had a phone call last week. I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, right after the surgery. And I said, well, let's just look way out. I'll put something on my calendar 6 months from now and reach out with a text. Let's wait. And you said, no, let's do this recording now. And I didn't even think about it in the moment, but now it's crystal clear that like me recruiting, my family, the Zog family, and this community that's grown over the last 5 years of Dad Awesome, to pray with you guys, to follow along and celebrate, because you guys do such a great job of sharing on your Instagram and other platforms of like, look what God's done. And so we're with you. Thank you in this chapter of, you're the only one that can pick up your 4 girls. You're in many aspects, you're really being asked, like, you have to step in with faith. Just like you said, you have to set the bar for your family. There are some dads listening right now that are in a valley. They just got news. They're in a valley. Is there anything else that you haven't already shared? You've shared a lot that'll be helpful for those dads, but any just kind of last parting words that you'd want to share with the dad who's in a valley, carrying more than they feel like they're strong enough to carry? What would you share with them?
I think I'd first say we're not supposed to carry some of this. When God set all this up, we should not be having the weight we have. This is because of the fall. We live in a broken system. It was not his intent. So that's number one, that you need God. I need God. So the weight you feel is not a weight we were designed for. And so that's the first thing I can tell you, is I had to let myself off the hook. That brokenness I felt, the fear, that. First off, it's normal in a bad situation. Those are normal things. And secondly, that's not how God designed it. This is part of the fall. And that's not fun, but that just is what it is. I think the next thing I would say, and it's kind of the thing I harp on for me first, and then for other guys, is give somebody the keys. And when I say that, that is, there needs to be somebody in your life that knows enough about you to let you off the hook, but also draw you up. And what I mean by that is, if you have 7 advisors and they all only know one area of your life, you have no advisors, 0. They're useless. That's not an advisor. The reason a dad or a mentor is so powerful is because he has the picture of your life in 8 areas. And so when any one of those implodes, he's able to come in and say, hey, you're okay on the whole. This one little part's on fire. So I think what I would tell a guy in the valley is, it is okay that it's hard. And you can't take that. No mentor can take that off of you.
Thank you, Josh, for inviting us into your miracle story.
Mm-hmm.
And next time I'm through your area of the country, look out. The Zog RV is stopping. Let me say a short prayer for you and for Allie and your family. Heavenly Father, thank you for round after round after round of your miracle protection. God, you are good, you are loving, and you are actively at work in the Taylor family. And we just pray and continue to pray with them that this miracle healing, the strength would return, that even the picture I saw of Allie holding all 4 girls, her strength from a little while ago before the surgery, God, that would return. And we get to celebrate with her as she walks in healing and walks in strength. So we pray just your goodness would flood into their family in all aspects. We're so grateful for them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.